Let's go ahead and start in a couple minutes. And just want to mess with a few more audio things. Should be live now, though.
Yeah, it's on for me now.
I just heard audio for a sec. There we go.
Yeah, just let me know if, you can hear the background music and if it's too loud or if it's going over our voices or anything.
Sounds fine to me.
Alright, that's good.
I'll type this real quick for you two. Just need to make sure this isn't mentioned.
Alright. Is this in the script?
Oh. That's fine. I wasn't even thinking about it.
No big deal. Alright, so it's 5:30. I'm gonna go ahead and go live then. We're gonna go ahead and just kind of do like the introduction and then jump into the games that we have on the script.
Okay.
Alright, so welcome back everyone. This is another episode of Looking Forward to It. I'm with Erren and Mike tonight. I'm glad that they could join us to talk about some games. Happy New Year on top of that. It's going to be our first show of 2016. We have plenty of things to talk about. There's been plenty of new stuff. I'm sure you guys have seen a ton of Jump Festa trailers. There's new stuff for Final Fantasy 14, 15, all that's coming down the pipe. So much to start off with. I guess the first thing I want to do is kind of do a little bit of a catch-up. So, both my colleagues here, Erren and Mike, if you want to just go ahead and say, start off with maybe your biggest expectations or biggest things you're looking forward to in 2016. Let's start with Erren.
Alright, well, 2016 is going to be a really big year, I think. As somebody who's a fan of Japanese games and like Square Enix games in general, I think there's a lot to look forward to, more than any other year in a really, really long time. And I feel like this year is the year for them. Like, they've had some issues in the past, but I think now, last year we had a whole bunch of announcements, and this year they're finally going to be releasing those games.
And Mike, what do you think about it?
I'm definitely looking forward to 2016 more than 2015, especially in terms of JRPGs. I don't know if we're just sticking strictly to like Square Enix stuff, but there's definitely a lot coming out this year that I'm pretty excited about. At least I hope it all comes out this year. It seems to be the thing every year. Is that it's January or December, January, looking to what's coming out in the next year, and you're like, this year's gonna be awesome. All these great games are coming out, and then by like E3 time, you realize half these games aren't coming out this year anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Right, I'm fully expecting a bunch of them to get delayed, but as long as they release eventually, I suppose.
Well, I hear a bunch of people saying 2015, the year of dreams, the year of promises. So, hopefully 2016...
It was the year of dreams. I mean, who expected, like, Nier 2, Final Fantasy 7 Remake? Who expected that? Nobody.
That's always the thing, though. It's easy to get excited about ideas and concepts and trailers. It's so easy to make... Okay, I shouldn't say it's so easy, but it's a little bit more easy to create a good trailer to get you excited about a game than the actual delivery of the game itself.
I think we all know that all too well.
Yeah.
So
there's been a few times where we got burned by that.
Yeah, being a Square Enix fan, you kind of learn to understand that maybe something is not going to come as soon as like that following holiday or that September. It's probably going to be a while, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the games that we're the most excited about don't come out within the next year or two. But it's definitely given a lot of people more hope that, there are a lot of games that are coming that are going to just kind of line them up, knock them down. Maybe you don't have a PS4 yet, but Square is giving you like a big reason to get into next generation gaming, or to, especially PC now with all of the ports that have been announced recently.
Yeah, it's that's one thing I would like to see going forward this year, is all these great games that have been announced, especially on the Japanese side, with the growing trend of a lot of them eventually ending up on PC, and especially Steam. I really do hope a lot of these games also come out on PC. Like, it's great to see Sony putting so much backing into a lot of these projects to make them happen, or to make them first console exclusive on PlayStation 4. But at the same time, I do like it when they're available on PC and you could do a little bit more, especially if the port isn't so great. There have been some bad ports in the last few years. But modders come to the rescue.
Yeah, that's actually something I want to touch on when we talk about Final Fantasy IX a little bit later in the show.
Sure.
Definitely. So I think what we're going to do now, before we jump into our first game that we're going to talk about, and we're going to start the show with Final Fantasy XIV, and we're here live in the Dravanian hinterlands on our little perch here. So if you're in-game, stop by, do a little dance. Don't do anything too NSFW. I mean, we've had problems with that in the past, but you just keep it PG-13, right?
So you're saying no lalas allowed?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the lalas can come, but they're just not allowed to do anything crazy.
Here come the lalas.
Oh boy, here I asked for it. All right, so I want to take a quick look at social media. Please definitely give us a comment or a question or any kind of feedback in the chat. If you have something that we want to answer pertaining to a specific game, let us know. And you can do that in the Twitch chat, or you can tweet us at Nova_Crystallis. And I'll be looking at that throughout the show to read off some of the questions or comments. Okay.
You need to come up with a hashtag as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. Hashtag looking forward to it, maybe?
Yeah, hashtag callouts.
We'll definitely have to do that for the next time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Although I did have one comment back when we were calling it please look forward to it. Somebody was like, yeah, I feel offended by that. I was like, really? I don't think so.
Oh man, I'm offended by their offense. Anyway, I think looking forward to it's a better title too. I mean, thinking about it, it's like, all three of us are looking forward to upcoming games, so I felt that the new title, and Erren had suggested it to me, I feel like, yeah, that fits the show better, so.
It's also a little more catchy, it's easier to remember as well, so.
Indeed, I agree. So, first game we're going to jump into is Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward, and we got a huge announcement at the Live Letter last month. Those of you who have been to the FanFest before have a treat in store for you at the end of this year, and we can say this year now, but the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Festival is coming back, and it's going to be in both Tokyo, Japan. It's going to be back in Las Vegas, Nevada for North America, and it's coming to Germany in Europe.
Europe's going to be 2017, though, correct?
2017, correct. I believe February or
Really
March.
quick,
Yeah.
Oh,
really.
so theirs got delayed. I didn't see that.
I think it was originally scheduled for that. It's just that, I guess the scheduling of it just didn't work out where they could get it in 2016, but it is definitely coming to Europe, and not London this time, but actually Germany, and I know one person who's going to be pretty excited that it's going to be in Germany.
Well, I think they actually got to vote on that this time, so.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, who knows if in the future they'll do a third one and maybe they'll go somewhere else in North America. But if they did go somewhere else in North America, where would you think would be an appropriate choice?
This isn't really like I guess my answer for this isn't something that's I guess quote unquote appropriate, but
Let her rip.
I'd really like for it to be in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Minnesota, northern Minnesota, and anything that's away from the coasts is kind of more convenient for me, and
Yeah, because
not as expensive, right?
right. I mean, looking at well, last Fan Fest, I was looking for flights for Vegas, and they were super expensive. So honestly, like I can drive to Chicago, that's no big deal. But if flights are expensive this year, I don't know.
I knew you were gonna say Chicago. I think they should just do they should do an East Coast one probably, just to make it a little bit more evenly distributed,
I
so
would say
fans don't have to
not.
fly.
Definitely not New York City though, because
Stu-
logistically, it's a nightmare.
I've heard, yeah, the Javits Center. It's not the greatest setup there
Hmm.
for that convention if they were going to do it there, but Boston, I think, would probably be better. Like they have some pretty big conventions there, so I would say Boston or maybe Maryland because that's where they have Otakon. So they have a pretty good convention center there for Otakon, I believe. But Boston or somewhere in Maryland, I would probably say would be a good candidates if they're going to do it on the East Coast. Um, Vegas personally is fine. Like it's easy to find parking. It's easy to get around there once you're actually there. And there's plenty of hotel space, so you don't have to stay there. But uh, at the same time, it is like mixed in with all the gambling and all the other stuff. That's probably how they convince all the developers to go to it in the first place, though.
Yeah, and I'm sure they get Vegas relatively cheap compared to other places as well. So
If I could be totally selfish for a moment, I'd really like it for it to be in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, so that I could make a 2-hour drive south.
well, you're not. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not too bad.
Unfortunately, though, that'd mean more travel for everyone else probably. So
Yeah, I mean, Vegas is still pretty far.
yeah, but usually I feel for maybe like the center of the nation, it's kind of a shorter trip and maybe a little bit less expensive. And so
Also, the weather, I think they're trying to do it in October, even though everything's been so warm lately. I don't think that's going to matter. But holding it in Vegas ensures that there won't be any issue with like winter weather or some kind of like snow. Like if you held it in New England during that time of year, there's a chance,
right, if there was like a
maybe
freak
weather
winter
issues.
storm, yeah,
Or if you held it up in like Seattle or something, like there could be issues, or even San Francisco. So I feel like holding it in a southern area as you get closer towards winter ensures or makes it seem like it's a little bit more safe when it comes like the weather.
yeah.
Makes it easier for people to like travel there and enjoy it.
I don't know. Maybe like Dallas or Houston couldn't be out of the cards. Maybe that area could be. I mean, isn't PAX South there?
X South is in San Antonio actually.
Oh,
So I mean these I don't think those would be bad places, but I think the real reason is one, Vegas is kind of not too far away from their base of operations in LA, Square Enix that is, and it's I think it's easier travel for the developers
hmm,
to get to Vegas. They probably want to go there. It's like a nice like they probably get to go there for longer than the event. I hope to have some downtime for maybe a day or two before or after. And there's just the space and accommodations. Like everywhere else I can think of is in the downtown of a major city
hmm,
where it would just. I mean, they do have conventions and stuff, obviously, but it's just easier for them. And as I think Aaron pointed out, it's probably cheaper to do it there. They probably don't have the largest budget in the world to do this. Like Blizzard rents out the Anaheim Convention Center and the arena to do like a giant concert. I don't think they have that kind of money like Blizzard does to put together a fan fest.
No, probably not. I mean, last year or no, what, 2 years ago now? um, the first Fan Fest. That one, they had a decent amount of stuff there, but obviously was nowhere near as big as something like BlizzCon. But,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, not at all. And there are a few people that were even in our free company that managed to get out there, and they had a great time. It seems like there were plenty of events. The stage events were fun. I mean, like the concert with Soken and the Primals, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
great.
That and some of the panels that were streamed even were really good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I'm sure that just like last time, that they'll have that all streamed where you can buy a ticket and yeah.
yeah. Which I did.
Oh, me too, definitely. I mean, I wish I could have made it out there, but unfortunately, it was kind of a probably not the best decision financially if I had just sunk a bunch of money to go out to Las Vegas. But it was
Yeah.
definitely fun watching the stream because the panels were great, and it was awesome watching the concert, and like the expansion reveal was pretty awesome too.
Oh, yeah. Which we're probably going to see 4.0 at this year, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, if the expansion's going to be announced there, maybe a little bit earlier. It's hard to say. I mean, considering that, how about this? How about we kind of give our impressions of when we think 4.0 is going to come out? I kind of
Well,
think later, maybe sometime in the spring of 2017, maybe like March, April, May.
yeah, I think that's probably their goal. Just because, like, Heaven's Word was delayed, as we know. I think they originally wanted it in May,
Yeah.
but it got pushed back to the end of June. Um, but this time, I think that they definitely want to get it out either May or maybe even sooner.
Yeah, I think it'll be sooner because February, they're shooting for February for 3.2. And let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say it hits mid-February. Then that would mean May would be 3.3, August would be 3.4, and 2.4 is when we got was in believe the patch frame we were in when we got FanFest happened in October. It was like right after second coil was done, so I
Hmm.
believe we were going into final coil. So that would be 2 months after that. This year would be when FanFest is, so it would be well into 3.4, with 3.5 being around November, which would be the end if they're not going past the fifth patch, which would mean like I don't know, February next year, but let's say they need a little bit more time. Like an expansion's not going to come like 3 months after the last patch.
Hmm.
So I would
No.
say I would say the time they needed last time. I would say March, April this time. I don't think it'll slip to May. I bet they're able to do that. Just because I also think some of the other games Square Enix are working on will probably come out towards the end of this year, so it should start to possibly some resources to go back to the 14 team just in time for the development to help wrap up the development of the expansion for 4.0. So I'm saying March, April of 2017.
So let's take a moment to go back a little bit. All of this was, we have kind of like a framework that we have for patch releases in our minds that they're going to try to go for. But we want to talk a little bit about patch 3.2, which had some information released at the live letter, the 26th one. There's quite a bit, actually. Just scroll through our summary here. I mean, we're going to get our next tier of Alexander, which I
Yeah.
know everyone is very excited to, kind of get their hands on.
Yeah, I'm actually more excited to see like how they've taken in the feedback this time because uh, it's
Yeah.
I think anybody who's doing the raid or who's done the raid this tier, I think they know.
Hmm.
They know. I don't have to explain any more than that. They just know that
Yeah.
it's not as good as it could have been.
So do you think, and sorry, Michael, I'll let you weigh in just a second, but do you think that, a lot of the impressions that I've heard and seen from Coil, or not Coil, sorry, Alexander, is that, the fights were too hard, and a lot of the fights seem to have mechanics that are relying on maximizing the amount of gear you grind out of tomes. Do you feel that the Norma mode and the Savage mode that they've implemented for Alexander, do you feel that that was probably a mistake from feedback from fans that wanted something more difficult and something more moderate? Do you feel that Coil was ideal? And, considering Coil, I mean, there were problems back where people had been clearing for weeks and weeks on end, and they were like, well, give us something harder. And do you feel that the feedback from Coil caused the situation that we're in right now, where people have just banged their heads against Savage? Do you feel that people, should people just suck it up and understand that Savage is Savage and it should be this hard? Or do you think there's some better way to go about it? And I guess we'll go to Mike this time to see what you think.
In answer one of your points, they pretty much came out and said that the tuning of Gordius Savage was in direct response to people feedback from second coil and final coil of Bahamut. And then looking at second coil Savage, like what they did with it. I do think it was more of I do believe what they were saying. I do believe that they tuned it the way they did as a response to those players who had been clearing it and were asking for something more difficult to keep them occupied. And I don't necessarily want to say it was difficulty that they were asking for as much as they were looking for more content. Like, there's always two sides to this. Like, there's a lot of people that have been whining about, or sorry, I should say complaining about Alexander Savage in terms of difficulty. But I think part of the problem is also just as it's the other guilty part of it is that the lack of other content to do that would satisfy the quote unquote mid-core player base, which seems to be the target of a lot of the criticism leveraged at Square Enix right now. I think in an ideal world there would have been a final coil Savage to keep those players who were whining occupied when they're like, we've been done with turn 13 forever, we beat Bahamut, give us something to do, where's our Savage? And oh look, we cleared it in such a short time. But there were different circumstances. We don't need to get into it, but the groups that cleared it really early, they had different tools available to them. The
Right.
structure of Alexander Savage, it wasn't just a difficulty, it was just a structure as well in terms of how you got gear, how you progressed with your gear. That was also adjusted in response to what happened through second and final coil. And it was definitely structured to be as savage as possible once you hit the halfway point. They came out and have said that the first two turns were tuned more like coil turns. Like, a lot of people did not have too much trouble with Savage 1 and Savage 2. And the gear you got for them, like, it didn't, like, that the issue didn't become so apparent until you hit Alex floor 3, I think.
Yeah.
And that, I do feel that there's a lot of issues with Alex 3 and 4 in terms of, like, their order probably should have been flip-flopped. Like, I feel that 3 probably, I haven't played enough of 4, but from people who have cleared both, the sentiment seems to be that 3 would have made the better final phase for it and would have ramped up the difficulty appropriately for people. And then the part that I'm having the most issue with what I've experienced is the way that gear is locked this time. There used to be the loot tables in second and final coil allowed you to maybe get like a chest piece early on. The material needed to upgrade your tome weapon wasn't locked behind clearing the last turn of the raid either. So not only did they hold the two of the best left side pieces till pretty late this time, which was a big deal, but like the weapon was held behind clearing everything. You could not get an upgraded weapon until you actually cleared all of Alexander Savage this time. So they really did make it as challenging as possible for people to get through, honestly. I think enough has been said about the mechanics and the structure. I don't feel a lot of people like Alexander for Savage. From what little I've played of it, it seems like a not fun fight either. The problem with Alex 3 is just I feel it's tuned a little too tightly. The mechanics windows for a lot of the mechanics are a little too small and a little too hard to overcome for the average group. If you mess them up, it's not as bad as some of the second coil insta wipe stuff where you have zero chance of recovery, but it's pretty much like make or break for some of the stuff for early progression. And
Totally.
then, yeah, the other problem is just there's nothing. This might be getting too far ahead, but Thornton Extreme was like the perfect mid-core content to satisfy people who maybe weren't ready for the later parts of Alexander Savage. They
Mhm.
really, really need that more type of that content, and having 3 tiers of difficulty for Alexander would have been perfect. Sounds like we're never going to get that because of lack of resources. So they definitely did make other content then that's gonna satiate one group of the player base and not alienate the other.
Mhm.
Sorry, that was a lot, but like that's pretty much my thoughts on it right now. Is that it's a tuning problem that they did. They went a little too overboard with it, and then and especially the gear progression as well, how they lock things, and it's just a lack of other content to keep players interested if they are slamming into that brick wall, which seems to have like caused a lot of people to quit or take breaks from the game.
Yeah, I mean, I, I guess my impression. I'll go ahead and let Erin jump in on this one because I have a question for her about this. Because I know that we've talked about how Alexander's been handled, and you feel that Coil was kind of more of an ideal way to set up raids, and you felt I think that the difficulty was more appropriate, I guess. So do you think that if the second tier of Alexander, which is called Midas, do you think that if they relent a little bit on, do you think there's a danger if Savage Mode isn't as difficult as they had planned, that we could be back in a situation of second or binding coil or the final coil of Bahamut? Do you think we could be back in a situation where people are clearing it too much, and then we have the same conversation about there's nothing for me to do right now?
Well, I think we're actually in that situation right now with a raid tier that's too hard for people because like a lot of groups have given up. They're not doing the raid. What else are they doing? So it's a double-edged sword. They're either damned if they do, damned if they don't. But the other side of that is if the difficulty is closer to final and second coil, more people will actually be clearing it, and the fact that they did clear it is good enough, I think. So those people are going to want to go back in and get their gear every week, even though that they've already cleared it.
Right.
I mean, Savage, I'll actually comment on Alexander for Savage, but that fight, I agree with Mike in that it should have been the third one. They should have switched 3 and 4 around, but the biggest issue with that fight is that it's entirely too unforgiving. The mechanics are too unforgiving. The DPS is not really, difficult, but it's just so easy for one person to make one little mistake so far into the fight, and you have to start all over again. And that's my biggest problem with that fight.
I think a lot of fans, and when we talk about how the raids influence, I guess some of the more hardcore and mid-core players. A game like this, and we've been playing pretty much since A Realm Reborn's launch. Some of us have been playing earlier since 1.0, and I think
Yeah.
that
I
we,
mean, and
we
I'll be honest. The people who wanted the raid to be more difficult, and the people who always cry about nerfs and everything, they make up a very, very, very small percentage of the player base.
right.
So it's actually not very good that the development team did listen to those people because they don't represent the larger amount of subscribers who actually want to play the game and have fun. Alexander isn't really fun, and I'll be honest about that.
Yeah, it seems like there's a big group of like mid-core players that feel that things are a little bit out of whack right now. That maybe they're sick and tired of doing they're doing Alexander, and they like Mike said, Thornton's probably something
Thornton,
that's
you know what? Thornton was perfect. Thornton, even though it reused a bunch of mechanics that we've already seen before, the fight was actually fun, and people had a lot of fun doing it, and people didn't bang their heads against it every day trying to get it done. So I actually really had fun with that fight, and I'd like to see more like it, actually.
Well, speaking of Thoradin and trials, we have a new trial that's coming in patch 3.2, and that's going to be the first in a series of trials that will involve the Warring Triad, which is a callback from Final Fantasy VI. The first one, I believe, is going to be Sephiroth, which is not Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth, but the Sephiroth enemy boss from Final Fantasy VI. And in the translations, it's called Fiend or Doom, depending on what version you play, but from my translation of the live letter that we wrote up on Nova Crystallis, and you can look that up on the site, we have that down for the trial for patch 3.2. And so, we'll get the story version, and then we'll get the extreme version, and then the extreme version obviously will have some sort of equipment that you can get to probably smooth the transition into Midas. And so that should be definitely a stepping stone for that as well, as new tomestones.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. I feel like they have done a lot better on the trials this time around, even with stuff like Ravana, which was with the expansion launch, but hopefully they can take what they've learned and apply that to the raid as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other part about Coil that made it so great was people actively wanted to go back in there even though they had cleared it. Like every time, for example, every time somebody wanted to go in, like, oh hey, you want to go in there and maybe help me clear, or we're gonna do like a help group, I was usually always willing to go because I liked Coil. From just everything about it was amazing, and
yeah.
Alexander is pretty much the opposite for me.
So it seems like the team also wants to kind of rethink the exploratory missions. The feedback from the Diadem was kind of mixed. There are a lot of people that liked that there was some sort of it was a new piece of content, basically. New piece of endgame content.
It was also a new way to get some pretty decent gear depending on your luck, and let me stress the luck part because I went in there quite a bit and I only got maybe one thing that's actually useful.
A lot of people kind of likened it to something like Diablo, where it's kind of like a crapshoot of the gear that you'll get, but
Oh, definitely. It don't get me started on the minion that you can get out of there, which I've never seen drop ever.
Yeah, hopefully that drop rate will get nerfed sometime in the future. So I want to transition from that to another popular topic recently, and that's the anima weapons. So it seems like every time that we have like a new update to Relic, there's a huge uproar about the amount of tasks that you need to complete to get the next tier. Then it kind of dies off when people sort of reconcile that yeah, it's gonna be like this. But do you feel that people have the right idea about Relic? Do you feel that?
See, here's the thing about the Relic. I feel like a lot of the people who complain, either they're gonna do it anyway, which they did it anyway, and the other problem is they're always rushing in to do it. See, the thing about the Relic is it's content created for people who don't feel the need to rush. Like, you're not supposed to rush out and do the content because they make it so... And it's not even difficult, it's just time consuming.
Right.
And they make it that way because they want people to take their time, get a few items a day or whatever, and just stretch out the content.
Right.
And what we end up with is the small amount of people who are whining about it are the people who, like, they have to get it done within 24 hours or it's not worth it.
And I think this actually touches on a few different important issues. On the live letter, they basically restated their development philosophy when it comes to powerful endgame items. They basically said, okay, there's 3 ways you can get powerful items in 14. You can do the biggest, hardest raid, which is Alexander or Coil. You can do the Tombstone Cap, which is kind of like the middle route. You're doing somewhat difficult content, for a certain amount of tomes each week. And then the easiest route, the least restrictive route, is the relic. And obviously that takes quite a long time. There's quite a few steps involved. So I feel that it's kind of bizarre for me to think about how they could implement something in a way that values. I mean, to me, relic. You're not doing the hardest content, but you'll eventually get there, and it's going to be long. It's going to be kind of grueling. With the raids, I
Yeah.
mean, they're rewarding, the amount of time and effort and coordination that's going into getting this content done. And I hate to say it, but that's how this game has been. It's like in 3 months, like it's not going to matter anymore. Like the new will be out, the new tier of relic will be out. Like you might as well choose a path that's more conducive to the amount of hours that you want to put in.
Right, exactly. I definitely agree with that. And the thing about the relic too is, if it's anything like the past relic, the Zodiac weapon, they're gonna keep adding to it. So it's always gonna be something to do. It's not gonna be a one and done thing. You're gonna keep going. Whereas stuff like the raid weapon or even like the currency weapon, those are pretty much worthless as soon as the next stuff comes out.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, it makes it, the next patch or two usually makes the previous content steps, much easier. Like, Relic got substantially nerfed over time, so
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time. Like, if you want the best things now, you got to put in the work in, or you got to put in the time. So I guess I'll ask, how far are each of you on your animable weapons? I am painfully behind. Did we lose someone?
Oh,
I
you sounded
you cut out
off
for a
second.
second.
Oh, a brief
And
second.
you had a hiccup in your connection because the stream
Yep.
also hiccuped for a second. So
Oh,
It's,
whoops.
good now,
it's
I
fine
think.
now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I actually have been taking it really slow, um, slower than I did on the Zodiac weapon, in fact, and just kind of doing a few things here and there every day. I'll do like the roulettes and maybe a little bit of normal Alexander and some hunts here and there. And it's been what, 2, 3 weeks now. This week will be the third week since the patch, and I've already got 55 out of the 80 items that you need for it. So, I mean, I honestly, I don't think that's that bad at all.
So, Mike, how far are you on your relic?
Um, well, if you're watching this on the stream, and you should be able to see if you watch any of the shots. But no, I have the white mage staff already. I took about, I want to say it took about the same time it took any of the other phases, except the last phase of Zeta, which was the kind of like congratulations, you put up
Right.
with this long. Here, you can finish this in a day. Have one on us. I feel it took about the same time, maybe 10 days. I feel like, and that is not the quote unquote no lifing it thing.
Right.
Although someone was joking with me that the title, the origin of the name, the Numenon, has some reference to having no life or something, or could be interpreted that way. I don't know if that's true. I
Well,
haven't actually looked it up, but I felt it took roughly the same amount of time as the other ones. Maybe there was a bit more that had to go into this one, but because I was so used to how relics were gonna be, it just ended up. I don't know, but I do want to say that I did go through like the sort of the 6 stages of grief as I do every time they announce a new relic and what it's gonna take. And the most knee-jerk reaction, obviously, is when the day if you wake up for the patch day of a relic, you, especially this time, because they said if you finish Zeta, you got to skip a step, and they said it was a step that was really going to annoy you. It was basically the Atma step, where you got to grind fates to get random drops and then turn them in to advance the next stage. People who completed the last relic to the end got to skip that step, which was nice. So I haven't done that yet. I've heard it's not too bad actually, but it's again RNG dependent. So you're your life could suck. It could take forever, or it could take like a few hours. Just depends. The second step was pretty easy, especially once people like me stopped listening to Reddit and found out you could do the dungeons. You had to go back and do a bunch of the old dungeons with your incomplete new relic to get credit. You could do them unsynced, the new option added in 3.0, where you could do old content with all your new abilities and whatever max level you are now, so you could be level 60 and blow through them. But unfortunately, once you got to the Heaven's Ward dungeons, you couldn't do that anymore. That wasn't too bad though. But I think people thought that was going to be the end. And once they got to the last phase of this relic step, which is you need to turn in all these materials to get the new relic completed. I think that's when panic and anger started to set in for some people. People started to translate. Though first, there wasn't a very good Square Enix. The secretive nature of Square Enix with regards to their content, especially once something is actually out with regards to 14, is kind of infuriating sometimes. They do not do themselves any favors by playing it that way, because a lot of this could have been alleviated, and in a lot of the other instances, some of the initial blowback could have been alleviated if they just been upfront with the different ways that you were going to be able to get this stuff. They could have said, yes, you could go do X amount, was it 616? Some people were being dumb and saying 800 runs of Alex Normal to get all the materials you need, or you can run this dungeon this many times. They could have helped themselves by saying you could do beast dailies, the beast tried dailies every 4 days, and then it switches to 3 days every time you get these items that eventually you can turn in towards one piece of material you need to get your relic. You need 80 pieces. There's 20 unique ones. There's 80 you need to get, and then you need crafted stuff, which I'll get to in a second. They could have said you could have done the Beast Tribe dailies. They could have said you could help people who have never cleared Coil before, unsynced, to blow through it and get a ton of Poetics, because Poetics will help you buy mats, law bonuses. They could have helped themselves a lot if they just outlined a bunch of the different ways that they suggest. That doesn't make that step any better, though, because so much of the third step of this relic relies on running useless content at this point. Like, it doesn't seem like it was benefiting anyone. People, except for maybe some people by now who haven't cleared Coil, that's cool. You get to carry them through it. But banging your head through 100 plus runs of A4, or spamming old dungeons again just to get law, or spamming an instance in the hope that a new person shows up, like Steps of Faith or Crystallis again, it just seemed like it seemed lazy. It felt like they didn't have, I'll be blunt, it felt like they didn't have the money or time. So like, how can we make this step last long enough to keep people hooked into the game until as close to 3.2 as possible? But we can't make new stuff for this. Oh, let's just like reuse everything in the game, period, and have people redo it, and it all counts in some form towards getting the relic. And it's, oh crap, like, this is completely boring, and what the heck? There's nothing like remotely new or exciting to this. It's literally a grind in the most boring type possible. I understand that this shouldn't be easy to get in terms of like time. You shouldn't be able to get this right away. Like, it helps keep people subscribed longer from a business standpoint, so Square Enix wants it that way, but you need to feel some sort of accomplishment, I feel, for this, if you're not going to do raid content. Like, this is something for the broader fan base, I feel, to get satisfaction from. And this time around, I feel like they really messed up on that in terms of what you have to do. So there's like a double whammy of bad communication, their policy being so secretive, having this good community outreach to tell people what they could probably do, letting the community figure it out. Like, eventually everyone figured out what you needed to do and things settled down, but I feel like they could try and make an effort to give that kind of information out at some point after patch notes hit to help. And then the other part of it's the crafting part. Crafting isn't new to Relic, but the fact that you needed specialists to craft some of the stuff if you were in a small FC or didn't know people, you were in a really tight bind, because in addition to these 80 pieces of random materials you needed to turn in to get your relic, you needed 4 high quality specialist recipes from 4 different types of crafters. And then each crafter had a material that needed to be made for that recipe, which is also a specialist recipe as well. So it was, in a big FC like GAF, it wasn't that big of a deal. You had people, specialists for everything. Or if you're in a bunch of link shells, like if you have a good social network with people in the game, it probably wasn't too bad for you. But for newer players or people who don't have that big of like networked, they were put in a tough place for this,
So,
and I think that kind of stunk. And they needed to find a way to do something with the specialist. I feel like maybe I'm being a little bit ignorant from that in terms of what specialists have been able to do so far in the game, but this felt like the first time like specialists were had an important role in something, and it was kind of forced.
yeah, I feel like they definitely wanted to give crafting like a shot in the arm, but I feel like a lot of people hadn't really bought into specializing their own crafting skills yet, and so it felt like a little bit of a really situation. But I definitely agree with you on like, I mean, a lot of people have noticed in like for the last half year or so that when we get patch notes, we get the preliminary patch notes, and then we get the final patch notes on patch day, and preliminary patch notes are a little bit less than complete, I would say. And I think there's kind of like there's many reasons why this is, and I think that part of it is that they don't want people to suddenly start gaming the system to especially when it comes to like the market board and so on. They don't want people to know a certain amount of information so that people can manipulate the market board ahead of time, like with materia and so on. That's going to be something that's going to be a challenge for patch 3.2.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that part of it, but the 80 items part had nothing to do with stuff from. Okay, that's not entirely true. The maps were the Time Worn Wyvern skin, Archaeo skin, and Dragon skin maps. Those went up in price on their own anyway. That was inevitable for a little bit. Aside from that, every other way didn't involve anything from the market board. So I get the crafting part they can be a little bit more secretive about. The specialist part of it sucked. If they didn't need the specialist part, it wouldn't have been as bad as it was, I think, for some people. But I think they need to move away from crafting a bit for relic stuff, honestly. But the activities you need to do in order to get drops or light or currency for whatever to turn in, then that's not going to affect market boards. I feel like that's something,
Right.
and you can't do anything in advance because the item doesn't exist till the patch, so you can't save up for stuff. The only thing you could have done was had your poetics and your SO or law, sorry, capped to get a head start. Like you could have bought 2, I think, of each. You don't have enough. The caps don't let you get 3 of each item, so that whoop-de-doo, you get 2 of each immediately because you had in-game currency. But there's not a lot of prep work you could do, I feel, to like game the system. I feel like when it comes to relic items that have nothing to do with crafting.
Yeah, I agree. Like the secrecy stuff, I don't know. I think they really should get away from it. Like I get that they want people to spend more time playing the game, but a lot of the times, like you were saying, it just comes off as just bad communication, and people start throwing around all these ideas that aren't necessarily true. But once they get out there, then everybody sees that, and then they start thinking it, and it's not good.
So I'm going to go ahead and move on to another piece of 3.2 content that's coming out, and that's going to be called the Hall of the Novice. And that's going to be the system in-game that's going to allow you to get help on how to learn mechanics and allow you to mentor people in how to play better. How to get good, basically.
Yeah, they've been talking about this for a long time.
So eventually, I mean, it's finally coming in patch 3.2, and it seems like it's going to be an actual place that you can go to, and there's going to be, from my notes here, It'll be accessible at level 15. So you can start, as soon as you're able to enter Sastasha, the first dungeon that's available in the game, you can start training at the Hall of the Novice to learn, like, what does your role actually do? And I feel that's a big stumbling block for people who come to MMOs and don't know, like, the holy trinity of tank, damage dealer, and healer. And I feel that will allow them to, get a better idea of, like, okay, how do I actually tank? And, do I have to do the most damage, or do I have to do this or that? And hopefully that'll be a system that people can kind of get more comfortable with the fundamentals of how party play works in this game. So they're going to have like training dummies that will show you how to do mechanics. They'll have a roulette system that'll match you with mentors, which are people that are basically vets in the game that will, they're signing up to be helpful and to be supportive, ideally. So hopefully that will start allowing people to build kind of like a support network of, okay, so I can go to the novice hall, learn how to play this, and, be able to brush up if I feel that I need help in any one area. The team is also looking to implement, I believe, a cross-raid system, cross-server raiding, where you can raid with people from other servers. What are your takes on both of these two?
I actually think the training hall is really something that they should have had a while ago, because a lot of people, well, the game actually doesn't do a very good job of teaching people how to play their job. And so having something that's specifically dedicated toward that, I think, is going to help a lot, because I mean, a lot of this game comes down to reading, and we all know
Right.
people aren't going to read.
Read your tooltips. Read your
Let's
tooltips.
be honest. So having something that can visibly show them through like actions, I think, is really going to help, as long as they use it, of course. And then as far as, what was the other thing you mentioned? I'm sorry.
The cross server rating tool.
Oh yes, the cross server raid. I think that will also be really good, because some servers, like our server, for example, there used to be a lot of high-end players, and they all left, or a lot of them left.
They went to the promised land. Is that the idea?
They did not go to the promised land. They went to a land of terror. But
should we keep that server's name under the rug, or is it kind of like a commonly known?
Well, we all know everyone wants to go to Gilgamesh to try and hop onto that train, but honestly, I think having a cross-server party finder will help quite a bit, because a lot of the times, you just don't see that sort of activity on our server, on Ultros. You see, maybe there'll be one or two here and there, but, on other servers, you see that stuff all the time. So it's just, like, if you're a player who doesn't have a static, it's really, and you're, for example, on Ultros, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah, so Mike, what do you think? Do you think this is going to be helpful for people? And I know you've done some server transfers here and there. What's your impression on like the cross server shenanigans?
I'll be curious to see how it works. I think it's a good idea to try. I'm gonna assume there'll be like a separate party finder menu from the normal one, or some kind of icon to make it. I think they're gonna keep them separate. Like, I don't think they want to alleviate any confusion between like what's like your current server, what's cross server. They'll probably just be like a new like party finder. Then there'll be like cross server party finder under the social menu or party menu, and you can go to that one. It's strictly only cross server ones. I guess the issue is it still costs $18 to transfer. There's still a lot of restrictions on transfers. Like, you have to leave your FC. You can't be selling anything on the market boards. You can't own a room in the house. I don't know if you guys covered on the episode I couldn't be on before, the whole fiasco that came up on Reddit about an FC holding its members hostage because it wouldn't let them enter the house, and they couldn't demolish the room, so they couldn't transfer servers. So there's some still some issues. You can't take more than 1 million gil with you. So you better find a way to buy a bunch of stuff and take it with you and hope you can resell it on the market boards over there. It's still not like it's usually something you do with an alt character. It's not something you do with your main unless you really, really are dead set on going over there. And it is usually for raid purposes, but it still costs $18.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with it, it's $18 to come back as well. It's not like you get a refund or it's a round trip ticket. It's one way only. I mean, there's other issues like naming stuff. Like, despite I don't know what the numbers are at in terms of active players, but their subscription numbers keep going up, or the counts created number keeps going up. Sorry, and names are getting harder and harder to come by in terms of like certain types. They're just like trying to find a retainer name nowadays. Like it's impossible. You have to make up like gibberish at this point. So there's a lot involved with it. Like it's a good idea. There's a lot of hurdles that once it's in practice, I think it might deter some people from taking advantage of it fully.
Right.
But for the people who do want to make it easier to have an in-game way, I don't have to go to the Reddit recruitment forums. I don't need to go to the 14 official forums. I don't need to go look on other Guildworks FC pages to see what their recruitments are. It just puts it in game for you, makes it easier. I say, why not? Just do it so that you can try this out. Now, someone in the chat asked, "Is it to queue for raid together?" I'm not sure about that. Tony, maybe, or sorry, Grim, you could clarify that. Uh, does it mean you can queue for stuff with other people on the server? Has that not been made clear yet? Like, I didn't see any concrete info on that. So, if there's 4 people on Ultros and 4 people on Hyperion, and we want to go into Alex 2 Savage, can we queue up while we're on different servers and we just log into that instance, or do we have to server transfer? Like, I don't. That's another thing. If you don't have to server transfer, that would be amazing. If that was a possibility, it would just be interesting to see what that does in terms of I guess in terms of data centers or something. If there's any issue with that, like we're all grouped on like Chaos or Primal or Aether, is it going to be restricted to some? I don't know.
It could be, because you could probably imagine, if someone got in a Alex 4 raid with a group based out of the Japanese data center, that could be problematic. As far as I know, it's going to be a tool somewhat similar to Party Finder, but the specifics of which I'm not sure on yet, and I think they'll probably divulge more as time goes on. But as far as I know, it seems like it's going to be some sort of cross server. You'll be able to assemble some sort of a party and then be able to queue. It's hard to say, because we haven't seen any pictures of the interface yet about, what to expect. So I'm looking forward to details on that.
Okay, yeah, then that's my biggest question is how is it actually going to work? I'm skeptical. I mean, that would be amazing if you could just stay on your server. I'm a little bit skeptical about that because for money reasons, they would probably want people to server transfer. But at the same time, people might get angry. There might be backlash for that, for offering that feature, but forcing people to have to kind of pay to really take full advantage of it. And if it is the way that I hope it is, will it actually work as advertised? Because the Duty Finder system has had issues recently that they didn't acknowledge or didn't realize until they finally did realize. Oh crap! Like, it was pointed out by so many people. Like, there is a problem with the Duty Finder system. So I don't know if it'll wreak havoc on the system or something. Like, any new element introduced to matchmaking in this game seems to come with its initial set of hiccups that you have to usually wait a bit for it to be tweaked and fixed up. As far as for the training system that they're going to introduce, I do feel like the further we've gotten from the release of the game, as more players are just too used to playing with people who know their jobs, know the rotations, know what their skills are supposed to do, it's harder for new people to catch up I think skill wise, if they don't have any, especially if they don't have any previous MMO experience. And while I've been told by people who have come to the game more recently that 14's community is generally pretty friendly and welcoming to new people, there have just been so many personal experiences I had where people get fed up with that new player or the
Right.
initial bias towards seeing that message in a duty. Oh, there's a bonus. This person doesn't know what they're doing. Oh, they're gonna sit here and watch cutscenes, or just that kind of like stigma, I guess, against
Mhm.
the having to wait and teach a new player how to do some content, especially with the unsync system. It's just like, man, why don't you just like unsync it? Like, why you even learn it? Like, it's dead content. Just don't even bother. Which to some is a fair point, but some people starting now, they want to experience everything. I think it was a few weeks ago I saw like a coil static forming on Ultros that wanted to do all of coil legitimately.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
they did not want to do it unsynced. They wanted to play. They have all this content. Who cares if we won't have like the highest level gear? We still can do it. It's new to us. So it's hard for people who want to experience that. It will. I think it will definitely has the potential to help newer players get caught up and acclimated faster. I definitely don't want to see 14's community become toxic, like I've heard some other games and especially other servers on other games generally become. There's already enough of that sort of creeping in. The whole like I hate to call it entitlement, but I
Right.
played this game long enough. I've done all this already. Why should I bother with like a new person? Go find other new people. The whole catch 22, but there aren't enough new people to run it. So what do? I just sit around doing nothing. I do think it's going to rely more on the mentor system, the quality of mentors.
Mhm.
Um, I think anything they can design that's just automatic, like an instance, like a guild leave type thing, or guild house, which they already have in the game, can only do so much to train
Right.
you for, especially like raid level content. Like you could probably handle getting people up to speed to know how to do like the basics to clear any story content without problem, but they need to do a little bit more to help people who want to get into more mid-core to higher end raid stuff in this game. And it starts with how the quality of the people who want to train these new people. So I guess the vetting system, it's nice to just have someone say, hey, I want to do this. I'm a level 60 I-210 like monk, but how do they know you're actually a good monk? Are you teaching this person the right things? Like, how's the vetting system going to work? Is it going
Yeah.
to be like player recommended? Like, then does that bring in a whole level of bias? Are they, dare say, they mentioned something about some form of a DPS meter or something to actually tell people how good their DPS is? Like, you need to have like measuring sticks for these people. What if you're a new player who does want to get better, but for whatever reason you don't want to use like third-party programs? Like, you have to rely on your mentor telling you your DPS is only this. Like, that, I guess that's good enough. But the more tools Square Enix is willing to give the mentors and these new players to get better, like I think it'll just help improve the quality of the player base. But sorry to repeat it again, it just I think it ultimately relies on how good the mentors are and how well designed the system is for like vetting people and what qualifies as like a good mentor and stuff like that. Like just seeing if if that pool of people will be up to the task of getting these new players up to speed.
Right on. So I'm gonna go ahead and transition to like our last little bit in since we're kind of already through our first hour already. I'm gonna transition to our last bit on 14, which is where do you think the game should go? What do you think its most pressing issues, or what would you like to see the most out of Final Fantasy 14 in 2016? Given the schedule that we're going to have. So that'd be like, what are you expecting? What do you want out of like the post-release patches that'll release in 2016? Let's go first with Erren. What are you expecting from 14 in 2016?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we can safely expect is the continuation of the main scenario, and that the main scenario will be like extremely enjoyable and one of the best things about the game. One of the biggest things this year that I think that they really need to work on is maybe the variety in the in-game content, because so far they keep kind of doing the same thing over and over, and I've actually seen this complaint quite a bit recently, but people feel like they're not doing enough new, even though like the look of the content may be new, but it's still like you're doing the same thing pretty much. And I feel like they maybe need to get away from that if they want people to keep coming back for the patches.
I guess I would just, to keep it short and simple, I want them just to make more fun content, honestly. It doesn't feel like enough of the stuff I've experienced in Heaven's Ward has been as fun as what I experienced in A Realm Reborn. Thornton, you can say what you want about it, but so many times that I've done that fight with new people, when they've seen it to the end, they come out saying how much fun they had with that fight. And I think the game needs more of that. So I'm hoping that at the very least, whatever they do with raid stuff, if they make it too easy, they keep it the same, whatever happens, I hope that the trials continue to be up to the level of Thornton in terms of like fun and how long they last, like keeping us at least for a month occupied with a type of fight that you want to go back and do every now and then because you enjoyed it so much. Um, that's just my biggest hope, is that they keep the quality of the primal trials at the level that they have been with Thornton and to an extent Ravana before it.
Definitely. And I think, I'm someone who has rated quite a lot less due to life circumstances. I got a new job. Like, I've taken on a few new projects, like streaming on this channel, other games, and so on. So I play 14 a lot less than I used to. Fortunately, though, I still find reasons to log in. There's still a lot of content that I have more mileage in than maybe I would have before. So to me, I really enjoy the amount of content that they're able to put out, on a 3 to 4 month basis. And so my hope is that that continues on the same schedule. I definitely feel that there's a lot of frustration around not so much the fact that people want more, but they also want new. And I think that the exploratory missions was a step in that direction, and maybe due to some, a lack of foresight, they weren't able to control it in the way they wanted to. So I think that, if they're able to continue new features like that, I'd be totally down for trying and doing that more often. I do kind of think that there are a lot of veteran players now that have been playing this game for over 2 years now that have kind of fallen into a trap of, well, there's nothing for me to do right now, but so that inherently means that the game is dead and that its community is absolutely shuttered. And I feel like that attitude, it's fair to say that you have nothing to do right now, but I feel like there's a kind of toxicness that's born out of that, and that does kind of trickle down to people that feel that they should be zooming through all of the content, trying to get to 60 to participate in the end game. And I feel that, whenever anyone's asked me anything about in-game or, out-of-game, what's the best advice you would give to new players? All I would just say is just do the content on your own pace, enjoy it for what it's worth, and just, do everything on your own pace. If you have to change paces, like you can play less or play more, just basically, make the game work for you. And there are definitely different ways to do that. Like, if you want to do Relic, that's fine. Like, if you feel like the Tombstone weapon that you get is the best, that's fine too, because, it's all going to get nerfed in 6 months. And I feel like there's a weird sort of fatalism that, just because something is broken for a week, that, there are dire circumstances for months. Obviously there are still a lot of challenges that the game has, but I feel that overall, if they can continue the quality content that they've been able to put out in each patch, I think the game, will be fine. And I guess that's it. So, yeah. So thank you for listening through that hour of Final Fantasy XIV. We're very passionate about it, and it's a really great game. I think if you haven't given it a chance, definitely do. I mean, a lot of the problems that we talk about tonight are problems that, if you log in every day and you're doing endgame every day, then they're going to be a bit more magnified. But if you are new to the game or you're making your way up through the levels, definitely, take that with a grain of salt, because there's definitely a lot more. There are things that are problematic, but there are also things that, if you go through that content, you'll understand that, there's quite a lot to do that's quite a bit of fun, and, hopefully in the future that'll continue, even through the next expansion. So,
Yeah.
sorry to drag that on a bit, but we're going to go ahead and,
Okay.
we're going to go ahead and move on to our next game, and this was announced, on the last day of the year.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, basically. I remember waking up and I saw it on my phone, and I was like,
Yeah.
what?
So, the game we're going to talk about next is Final Fantasy IX, which is going to be ported to smartphones and PC sometime soon. It'll release.
Yeah,
So I'm
we
going to go
don't know
ahead.
when,
Yeah, I'm
but-
going to go ahead and cue up the trailer, but I'm going to go ahead and start with your thoughts, Erren.
Well, like I said, I was surprised. I mean, they have been putting out some of the older Final Fantasies on pretty much everything else, and pretty much every other Final Fantasy except for 9 for a very long time. I think the biggest offender is probably Final Fantasy 4, maybe 3 now.
Yeah.
But it always seemed like Square was ignoring 9, and even in a lot of their, cross promotional stuff for Final Fantasy, they always seem to ignore 9. But so when I saw that, I was like, wow, they're finally realizing that 9 is still a thing.
Yeah, so Mike, you've played Final Fantasy IX, right?
My extent of playing Final Fantasy IX is playing the beginning of the game, like the first 2 hours, and then doing a bunch of the last part of the game involving the Lost Nero family quest, because I had to do an episode of Hot Fiction about that.
Oh,
So I had to
great.
spend a lot of time at the last disc of the game, and I did play through the end, so I know how it all ends. So I played the last probably like 10 hours of the game a lot. And then I played the first few hours just to kind of start it, but I didn't end up finishing it. So I have not played it through in its entirety. So it's a little bit unfair of me to say opinions on this game. I've always been kind of biased against this one. Visually, it was the least appealing of the PS1 era ones that I
What?
saw. Even though it said it was like a throwback to, it was supposed to be a throwback to the older style of Final Fantasy. I did not like the main hero. I didn't like the look of the characters for some reason. I did not like the protagonist, like how the protagonist looked. I was like, I don't know about this game. So, despite Final Fantasy VIII being legitimately probably the one of the worst Final Fantasies, or at least the PS1 era,
Here we go.
it was the worst one. Like 9 holds it's in a really dark spot in my heart in terms of
Are you sure
9.
it's not colored by having to play through the same section for hours?
I mean, I saw like the plot twist involving the main hero and then Vivi's like plot twist. I was like, I don't know about this. I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know.
I think
But
9 is really a game you have to appreciate from the beginning.
that's why I'm saying, like, legitimately, that's like the honest opinion waits till I beat this game someday. Also, it's my opinion's kind of tainted by the fact a lot of my exposure to this game, besides the trailer, back in the day, was shitty Linkin Park music videos.
Oh my god.
set set to the FMVs from this
Oh
game,
my god.
and I was like, really? Even Final Fantasy VII doesn't have this many shitty Linkin Park music videos.
I think
Like, this game must be really bad.
I think
All these
Final
kids-
Fantasy X definitely takes the cake as far as FMVs and Linkin Park. I think
No,
that
it was
early
nine.
2000s.
You know what?
Stupid, like Odin spear part. See, every time they drop the freaking it's like every single music video uses that shot at the same point in the end from Linkin Park. I was like, it never ends. That
No,
and Naruto, same thing over and over again.
somehow over the years I have managed to avoid all of that. So
Oh man. Well, Final Fantasy IX, thank God, has had a more fond place in my heart than Damiani's. But yeah, gosh, like the end of the PS1 era, Square, I mean, just knocking out of the park as far as just like the polish and the style of each game.
Nine still looks good even today, I think.
It's one of those games that I feel like I can go play back and play it today, and it still feels new to me in some way, even if it doesn't look, graphically superior. It's just there's something about it that's got such a polish to it that, and such a, it's like a labor of love in some way, and I feel like it really is one of those games. I feel like that, Chrono Cross, and Vagrant Story were the trifecta of games at the end of the PS1 generation that were just masterworks. That, I mean, I know a lot of people that can't stand 9 because it just, it didn't feel iterative of 7 and 8, that felt like such a tonally different game than those two, and that's fine. But I really feel that 9 has a special place in my heart. And to see it come to PC and smartphones now, that's really cool. I also think that this is going to open the door for a PS4 version pretty soon too. What do you think? Given Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy, probably 8 will come to PS4 at some point too.
Yeah, I can see it just because of the ease. It's probably pretty easy to put on there, and they're already putting in achievements and stuff, so converting those to trophies shouldn't be too hard. I mean, I do want it. Like, I think it'd be great because those are the kind of games that I just kind of want to sit back and relax and play and not be at my desk. But I think that they'll come eventually, especially with how well 7 did. When I was looking at my friends list the other day, and over 50 people had bought that game again.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it tells you something. I know when they announced that game, people were all up in arms because... well, we all know why, but...
Yeah.
And at the time, I said, you guys are all going to buy it again anyway. And lo and behold, pretty much everybody that I saw whining about it did buy it again.
So speaking of buying games again, I'm going to go ahead and transition to our next game. It had a trailer at Jump Festa. A little kind of unknown game that people haven't really given proper attention to, so I'm just going to go ahead and play the trailer. It's a little game called Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but it seems like a lot of people are excited for this, or very skeptical, or very vocal, or all of the above. So,
Is
this...
Go ahead.
The Jump Festa, or is this the PlayStation Experience trailer?
Well, no, they showed
the PlayStation Experience.
They showed the same trailer at both events.
Okay, cool. I was hoping I didn't miss something. So, okay.
No. But yeah.
But yeah, so we got our first look at actual gameplay in the field and in battle.
Honestly, they came out and they're like, oh yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and oh yeah, we're gonna show gameplay, and I was like, what?
So
what happens when they use Unreal 4 instead of their own internal engines?
It's like, you guys announced this game 6 months ago with a CG trailer, and now you're showing actual in-game content, and we didn't have to wait 2 years to see this.
Like a certain other game that won't be mentioned.
Oh God!
Who knows what that could be? Yeah. So
You're doing this for the planet, right?
Well, I don't know. I kind of figured. I don't know. That voice kind of seems to match him. I don't know.
It does, but it's just. It was always in my head. Now I'm actually hearing it, so it's weird.
Oh, Wedge.
Then this Final Fantasy 15 frame rate returns. for combat.
Yeah, I
Hey Joe.
mean, it is pretty obvious that Nomura is taking a lot of his ideas from Versus 13 and putting them into the 7 remake, which I honestly don't really have a problem with, considering I was in love with the concept for Versus for many years. And to see it reborn in 7, which is one of my favorite games, I'm just really happy about it. Like when they showed that trailer, I was like, this is the best day.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess like the biggest contentious thing right now people have with it though is that, the battle system. Well, no, it's not an exact one for one remake of Final Fantasy VII. It's something that's a lot more akin with like Versus or 15 or Kingdom Hearts. So
Yeah,
do you?
and I feel like we've been warned about that since the announcement trailer, and even in interviews that took place right after that, after E3, Nomura and Kitase were like, yeah, well, if you want that battle system, you can always play the original version of the game. What we want to do here is not pander toward people just looking for nostalgia. We want to, expand on what we had, so it's going to be a full remake.
Yeah, and I think that's where people get pretty hung up is that a remaster is pretty much the same game with better graphics, but a remake is they're gonna try to remake this game on the same scale or a similar scale to what they did years and years ago. So to me, that's the most exciting thing about it. And maybe there are people that are traditional Luddites and can only deal with the a turn-based or time-based battle system. I like those systems too. I love them, but maybe trying something new. And from what we've heard, like it's not like a one-for-one, copy paste of Final Fantasy 15 or Kingdom Hearts either. There are some elements that are going on here that we're gonna learn about in the future. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
even just looking at the video, you can already see there's some sort of command system in place, and they've already said that it's not going to be like, a pure action game or anything. So I think people need to just kind of chill out until we can see more. Because right now people are, I guess, they're really hung up on it, and honestly, all we've seen is one trailer, and we haven't actually seen anybody playing the game.
So the chat also brings up that the Final Fantasy VII remake's also going to be told in a series of games, I believe. I don't want to say episodes because that already seems to be kind of taken out of context. But
Yeah, I feel like when you say episode, people think of something like the adventure games where they come out in like 4 or 5 episodes and they're really short. But the way that this project has been described is they're going to release it in multiple parts, with each part having the amount of content as a full game.
and that's another thing that has me very. I mean, it's kind of funny that people point this out, but the original Final Fantasy VII was on 3 discs, and the remake might also be on 3 discs. So, hey, there you go. Like,
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I mean, if you remember the original Final Fantasy VII, even though the graphics aren't that great anymore, but there was actually a lot in that game. And so trying to recreate that in modern graphics, it's not going to be as easy as it seems. And I definitely believe the developers when they say, if we would have just made it one game with the technology of today and the graphics that we're aiming for and everything, we would have had to cut things out, and people aren't going to want that either.
yeah, and I think a lot of the appeal of these mainline Final Fantasy entries is that they're very large 40 to 60 hour games. And so I think that I think Square and the developers that are behind this game, they know that the value that people see in that, and I feel that they definitely want to be able to make something I really hate to say the E word, but epic is probably one of those. God,
Yeah,
I already hate using that word, but you know what I mean.
well, I think the other part of it too is, if they would wait and make all the entirety of of the entire story and game all at once, it would take a long time. And people aren't going to want to wait a long time for this game to come out.
10
So
years maybe?
yeah, and that's actually something that Square Enix has said in the past. They said if we were to remake Final Fantasy VII, it would take us 10 years or whatever was said. So by splitting it up, they're going to be able to get parts of the game out in people's hands quickly, and people are going to, they're going to be happier about it because nobody wants to wait 10 years for a game.
So, Mike, I mean, considering the two major trailers that we've seen for Final Fantasy VII so far, what kind of a feeling has this left you with?
So I always saw this coming from the moment they announced it and they gave their first statements about it. Uh, I think I've said it before in our older version of the show in past episodes. I've never been the one. I was always curiosity will get the better of me in terms of wanting to see this game come out. However, there was a huge part of me that never wanted to see this happen. I felt leave the game alone as it is. Like this is this is like a running joke. Like make an HD remake of Final Fantasy VII, save Square Enix, ha ha ha. We'll sell 1 billion copies. Whoop de doo. Um, I didn't. I'm of the mindset that you should probably leave things as they were. Um, there's been too many examples of people, especially the original creators, going back and touching their work and it having coming off
George Lucas, basically?
yeah, having adverse effects in terms, and especially remakes, always are going to get compared to the original, and it's just how it's going to be. That being said, the fact that they are doing this, I felt they needed to go all in on making it as different as possible. Than the like do what they can to make it a remake as and not a remaster, as you said, Grim.
Mm-hmm.
So far from what I've seen, they're definitely doing that. I mean, we always knew it was going to look like Advent Children, but on crack, because Advent Children's now like 10 years old.
Right.
So they even said, like, Advent Children's old now. This needs to look better than that, and it does. So I expected everything I've seen so far visually, I've expected this. The gameplay, it was nice to just have that visual confirmation it's not going to be turn based. That would have driven me insane if this game was turn based, or even tried to use something like the Paradigm system from 13, where it's technically sort of turn based still. So it's good to see the combat system is action driven. Um, Again, I know I harped on Square Enix earlier about giving out information. I don't think they had a great game plan initially, like during the reveal of the trailer and the announcement that it was going to be broken into parts. The wording that was being spread around was very bad. Like someone within communications department and marketing department, Square Enix should have had the foresight to tell any mention of parts or episodic. Those words would drive people insane
Right.
when it came to an FF7 remake. So they could have had a better message planned up front to combat that. I was one of the people who thought like, was this gonna be like, is this gonna be like 70 part? Like I joked, I made a post looking at a game facts guide and like, oh, there's 70 parts in this game facts guide. Well, there's gonna be 70 like parts of this game, right? Huh? Um, that being said, it's a bit of a relief to hear that each part is going to be a full game, and now people are more erring on the side that it's going to be like 3 releases, like part 1, part 2, part 3, to kind of correspond with the disc of the original version. And I think most people are assuming the first game, even if it's not even 1-to-1 disc 1, it's going to be to the end of the Midgar section, like when you finally leave. It seems to be like what everyone's settling on. I hope that's true. I really don't want this to be a lot of parts, especially when Erren hit the point home that releasing this whole game would have taken possibly 10 years. I've already played. I know this game's story. Which I guess goes both ways. Honestly, I can see the other side of what I'm about to say, but I don't want to wait to finish this game. My biggest pet peeve in gaming is playing something that's incomplete, playing a demo, playing just like a part of something, and having to wait a long ass time to finish it. Like like TV shows, that's how it is until binge watching was Netflix came along. Now I'm spoiled by that. But in games, it had never been like that usually. And with DLC and episodic stuff, more companies get away with it, but it's usually like someone like Telltale. puts out a season of a game like Walking Dead over 5-6 months. That's not that bad. The prospect of playing part one, maybe like in early, like in say it comes out in 2017, and it might be 2 years before part two. And let's say there's like 4 or 5 parts, or even 3 parts. And it's just the game. That's gonna drive me insane. I just want to play this. I don't know. There's part of me that would say screw it, do it all in one thing. I'll wait for it. Like it's gonna be freaking amazing. But then there's the other parts like you're gonna be waiting forever for that, and financially nowadays is that even gonna be feasible for them to do? I complained about this quite a bit on social media when the info started to come out, and a bunch of developers I know came to me and were basically saying, like, you got to be realistic, man. Like, I get that they made this game in 1997, and back then it was a huge cost and a huge time sink to make it. Like, nothing had been done like it before. But trying to one-to-one make that today is even more ludicrous. The cost will be exponentially more. The time to take it's going to be exponentially more. They don't have the money to do that. It's just too big of a risk. And no amount of crowdfunding would have covered the cost of making this game, as people tried to say, like, do a Kickstarter for this. You would have made so much money. Like, they're not going to make like $500 million or something. That would have been the cost of probably making this whole thing as one game. So it's a hard pill to swallow. I don't know. It'll be an it will be, as the original trailer said, like, whatever may come, let's embrace it. It may bring, like, what was it, happiness, might bring fear. Like, that's kind of what they're doing. They some part of them did know that they knew what they're getting into when they opened this can of worms here. That we're finally going down the HD remake path. This could go very well, or this could go very badly. So I don't know.
That's why I love
Well,
that trailer, though, because it's basically talking to the audience in a super meta kind of way. Like, yeah, you guys wanted this, and we're doing it, and it's going to be amazing, and you might like it, you might not, but, it's going to happen.
And I feel like they definitely want us to open our minds to reinterpretations. Like, any creative artist that's revisiting their work is probably going to find fault with the original. And I'm sure, like, people like Kitase and Nomura, they're going to go back and revisit, their seminal title. And if they found, flaws, if they think that they can express something in a better way, they're probably going to try to do it. And I'm glad that they have this platform. I was definitely one of the people that expressed a lot of, I had wanted them to move on to, like, Final Fantasy 16 over doing something like a Final Fantasy 7 remake. But I think that the way that they're going about this, especially drafting the help of, like, CyberConnect 2, and there's probably several other firms that are helping out on developing this game as well, I feel that they're in a situation where they probably could move on to, like, a Final Fantasy 16 and, be able to, not have everything right on this 7 remake. I feel that the episodic nature of them, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say episodic, but the multi-part, the multi-part nature of 7 is definitely going to allow them to do things in more bite-sized ways, and I feel if that allows them, if that's a format that allows them to keep the scope of the content of the original, I'm definitely down for it, and I won't be one of those people who just, nothing can compare to the original. I want to see how they have creatively evolved over the years since they've made the original. Maybe there's not, maybe some of the staff, obviously Sakaguchi's not involved, but, it's going to be interesting to see how they reinterpret, and, I mean, my mind is open. I'm a little bit worried, but I'm excited, and so it's definitely causing me to anticipate new releases of information. And Mike brought this up before, but yeah, unfortunately the nature of how this game was going to be shipped out, like a multi-part series, I think that was kind of like snuck into a press release like a couple days after Jump Festa, wasn't it?
Oh, it was like right after PSX.
Yeah.
Like a day or two afterwards, and yeah, it was just like hidden in the middle of a press release, so it was kind of like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah, hopefully they won't make that mistake again.
I feel
Yeah.
like that sort of stuff needs to either be communicated in a trailer or on stage, or at least somewhere directly where people aren't left wondering how to interpret just plain words.
So, what I'm going to do, since I want to keep the show about 2 hours, but what I'm going to do is kind of do like a rapid fire of the rest of the games that got updates at Jump Festa, and the list I have here is Final Fantasy. Well, Final Fantasy Explorers didn't get an update at Jump Festa, but it's coming up pretty soon. Let me go ahead and fire up that trailer, but it's coming out January 26th for the 3DS. And, Erren, did you want to explain a little bit about this while I queue it up?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a Final Fantasy game, but I'd say it's closer to something like Monster Hunter, where you've got your group of characters, and they're not you know typical Final Fantasy characters, but those characters are in the game as sort of like guest characters, and you go around and fight and do monster things. It's
Yeah.
basically a Final Fantasy Monster Hunter game, with there's Cloud and Squall and Terra, Tina, whatever. She's in there too. And honestly, the biggest thing that surprised me about the game is the fact that it's coming over to the West.
Yeah, it seemed like it had been pretty quiet after it released in Japan. It was, I'd say it was similar to the Four Heroes of Light, which was like the Bravely Default predecessor. Like,
Yeah,
it wasn't sure if they were going to do it or not, but then here it is.
yeah, it's a lot like that situation, and it's funny that that we're talking about it now because I saw someone earlier today mention that apparently you can get the game now in Japan for the equivalent of $3.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but there it is.
it's been out for quite a while in Japan, though, I think, but I'd say, well, Mike, have you seen much about Final Fantasy Explorers? I mean, it's been kind of low on the radar.
Yeah, I feel like Square hasn't really talked about it too much since they announced the localization.
Yeah, like I just kept hearing what you'd like the comparisons you'd been saying, Grim. That it's been like the Final Fantasy Monster Hunter game. Sorry, that Aaron was saying. That you just form a party and fight monsters. Although watching the footage, some I've been playing 14, like how zoomed in some of these people are. I don't know if you could zoom out. Like that would drive me insane having to fight
Hmm.
that big of monsters with that camera angle. Uh, I yeah, I don't know what to think about it honestly in terms of it is it just straight up like go to areas to fight monsters? Is it structured just like Monster Hunter exactly? It would be my first question. I've seen plenty of trailers of this, and all the footage centers on them fighting Eidolons and or primals and different monsters, and you form a party of the different jobs to try and defeat them, I guess. But is there anything more to it? Is it like progression, like gear progression, like Monster Hunter, where you gotta like farm these things for items to build better gear or learn new abilities? Then you can take on harder missions, which are just hunt monsters. I already have Monster Hunter for that, and just because I can go in as fighting alongside famous Final Fantasy characters is not really going to do it for me. I much would have preferred a game more like For Warriors of Light, or just bring out Bravely for some people, because I know I trash talk Bravely Default all the time as a joke. Bringing out Bravely Second for people who actually do want it, because those two types of games look a little bit more interesting than this to me. This, I am not sure what. I just was just trying to cash in on the Monster Hunter craze to see if it caught like a low ball thing to see if it would catch on. I don't know. Yeah. And I also every time this gets mentioned, I like just mix up this and World of Final Fantasy for some reason. Where it seems to me World of Final Fantasy is the way more interesting of the two. If you had to like make me pick between these two, so I'm not really too don't feel too hot about this one, honestly. I don't expect it to do very well here, and I don't think we'll see much more of it here in the West, honestly, after this release.
Well, we're going to go ahead and review that later this month when it comes out on Nova Crystallis, so look forward to that. But Mike brings up World of Final Fantasy, which is another game that got an update at Jump Festa, so I'm going to transition to that trailer. All smooth like, hopefully.
Yeah, and that's another game that does have. Well, this one's more like, I guess, Pokemon-ish, where you collect monsters, you fight monsters and collect them, and you can use them in battle.
Okay, so it's not like a game where you're two protagonists going through. It's not the Final Fantasy Kingdom Hearts. We go through all the Final Fantasy worlds as two protagonists trying to save the world or something. And along your way, you go to Final Fantasy VII land, you go to Final Fantasy IV land,
I
you go to
mean,
Final Fantasy X
there
land.
are locations that are from the different Final Fantasies, and there are cameos from, some of the classic characters. Like they just announced Yuna from Final Fantasy X is going to be in that game, and they kind of showed a little bit of her at Jump Festa. So
Yeah, it's definitely a cute-looking game. I'm honestly, the happiest thing I can find in this is that we have another Final Fantasy where you can ride a behemoth around. Um,
yeah,
there is that, and then the minor insignificant other things is that this seems like it's a bone for people. Square Enix is throwing a bone at turn-based, classic style, that kind of Final
yeah,
Fantasy.
and it's actually like the interesting thing about the battle system is you can switch between that, the older style, the turn-based stuff, and they also have an option where you can have like a more actiony kind of combat.
Yeah, it'll be definitely. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of designs here that ring of Crystal Chronicles. As far as I understand, there's a lot of team members that are on this as well, like character designers and so on.
Yeah, yep, that's right. We actually sat down with the games director at E3, and he gave me a lot of confidence in the game. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
That would be Hiroki Chiba, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this one. I think
funny
it's
because we saw his name and then we looked at some of his past accomplishments before we went into E3 and we're like, what game are we seeing with him? And it turned out to be that game. So
yeah, I think people. He'd also worked on Chrono Trigger at one point, and people were like,
yeah. So when we saw that, we're like, oh, the Chrono something or other. No.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe someday. But there is, speaking of Chrono Trigger, there is another game that got another update at Jump Festa. Sorry to repeat myself too much. We have Project Setsuna, or Ikenie Toyuki no Setsuna, and that's coming out this year in Japan, for PS4 and Vita. And this game looks... I love the look of this game. It looks so cozy.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it, and I'm really hoping that the Western release isn't too far behind, because they haven't, like, they announced at E3, that it was the thing, and then they really haven't said anything since as far as like localization goes.
Mike, have you had a chance to look into any information about this game at all?
I had only seen the announcement back wherever it was first announced, the actual game, the Project Setsuna, same time as Nier 2, I believe, or when it wasn't even called Nier 2, it was just the Nier project. I did see some video that now, like as I'm seeing this, like that was this apparently, but I definitely like the art style of it. It's coming out this year in Japan. You said definitely, or
Yeah,
supposedly?
definitely this year. Probably spring, I think, is their goal.
All
I think
right.
it actually has a date now. Let me double check.
Yeah, I think it does. It might even be on this trailer, and I just being stupid and forgot it.
I mean, yeah, like this. Looking at these clips now, like this definitely.
Yeah, so it comes out on February 18th in Japan. So not
very soon.
too far away.
Okay, so this is pretty far along. I mean, as nice as the art style looks, it's not a very complex, like technical game. So.
No, but I think honestly, I think that that's a positive thing.
Yeah,
paused it.
they don't need to focus on high-end visuals for every single release they do over there
Right,
at Square Enix.
exactly. And a lot of the stuff they announced last year was actually a more return of like the mid-tier game where maybe the graphics weren't like, the most cutting edge, amazing thing out there, but the fact that they're making games other than Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy again is really, really good.
This definitely has a more storybook and a presentation feel to it than again like the colors they're going with. It's definitely not their typical. I don't know, like their more bad vocabulary today. Like everything that looks like their futuristic technological mastery shit that started with Final Fantasy VII, and then their super anime looking crap. Like this, that Setsuna looks like a nice departure from both of those. It actually looks kind of like it would be more shooting on like what Bravely Default was doing, like in kind of the style of the Ivalice games. Like it's not quite the same, but it's more in that direction. It's a little bit hint of reality, like Western, I guess, influence versus the overly over the top like Japanese or like mecha robotic like technological stuff.
So
Oh yeah,
So basically, you're saying it's not anime.
yeah. But now we're into something very good here.
oh, what could this game
Yeah,
be? I think chat might know.
this is the anime look I was talking about. But we're cool. Oh man, that aqua scene.
I mean, this game is like super anime.
Oh
So
sorry, Evilise. I know that's
yeah.
bad. Like old school habits coming back. Evilise.
So no Leon Blade. This is not the new Persona. So Kingdom Hearts 2.8, Kingdom Hearts 3 got a new trailer. And
Well,
it's full of
sort of new.
stuff. Sort of new. Yeah, there's a lot of old stuff,
Like
but
when Square Enix came out and said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna release this trailer on this day for you guys," like the first thing that I immediately thought of was that they were gonna make that trailer. They had a D23 public, and everyone was getting super excited about it, and I was right.
Oh man. But, it seems like it does seem like doing this trailer that the content we're getting in 2.8, we're getting a lot of stuff filled in terms of like backstory.
mhm.
A lot of stuff that we'd speculated would be very important to Kingdom Hearts 3. Now that they've revealed a little bit more of what's actually going to be in this package, it's pretty clear that some stuff that a lot of people haven't got to experience yet, and some games that no one's really touched before either because they couldn't because of a language barrier, most likely. But putting it, it's Kingdom Hearts Key Backpage is what it's called, or the cinematics from
Back
the
cover.
back cover from the foretellers or whatever.
Yeah, from
The
Kingdom
whole
Hearts Key, they have like the cutscenes, and they'll have some media to kind of like gel it all together with the series. And if you didn't know what Kingdom Hearts Key was, it was a browser and smartphone game that released in Japan that takes place before any title. Every title in the Kingdom Hearts series takes place way before all of them, and explains some things about like the Keyblade War and the origins of some elements in the series. So very important that this gets worked into the HD collections, because it definitely sets a lot of stuff up for Kingdom Hearts 3. And speaking of that, Kingdom Hearts 3 is gonna roll on the trailer on stream pretty soon. It's an area that we've seen before, but we get to see a bit more of the combat. And do you think? I mean, you can see a lot of elements of like flow motion and whatnot. How did this impress you?
Hey,
Go ahead.
hey, it's always good to see more of this game, like actual gameplay footage. The more gameplay I see of this, the more hopeful I am this is actually coming out. I know there are some people like some of the stuff looks like actual gameplay. Like some of the combat moves they whiff, they like Sora will glide in a move too far from something like that's Kingdom Hearts combat. Like you can doll it up and make it look pretty sometimes, but other times it looks goofy as hell, and it's just the nature of it. But these environments and the amount of like enemies, like they usually just pop up in the older Kingdom Hearts games. Like you'd walk along, there'd be maybe one, and they'd spawn the rest of them. Like they're just already in the combat, but it seems like there's enemies already just out in the world, lots of them, and you can just go up and fight them. And these areas seem way larger than the small compact zones that I've been used to, and I guess most people are used to in the previous games. All of them, not just the portable, the console ones.
Mhm.
I it that looks promising. Uh, I know some people had issue with the full motion system and Dream Drop distance. I think most of it was because it was exploitative. That you could essentially you could exploit the mechanic to make things too easy. But whatever, like it felt, I had fun with it, and it was a nice addition. Like I personally wanted to see them tweak it a bit and keep going with it. I was worried that too many of the vocal fans were like, "No, never bring that back." And to see hints of what is possibly it or is it in here, mixed with like the new kind of like smaller summon stuff like that we've seen, like the Dumbo thing, the Hercules thing. It makes me kind of excited about what they might do with the combat in the game. Uh, Combat's definitely an area that that could use the most work, I think, in Kingdom Hearts, especially making it feel a bit more fluid and not as clunky. It always felt like Kingdom Hearts combat was clunky as hell. Like when, especially when it involved any kind of blocking on bosses, it was just like mash that block button to try and get the timing right. Oh, you did the block right now. Execute like hit spam that triangle for the quick time thing. I was like, oh, like this stuff doesn't like it was didn't feel as smooth as it could have been. And at least whoever's playing this game and the footage they've selected, it looks a little bit like they're on the right track with that.
Mhm.
But again, like the environments look pretty good. It's obviously they're having an easier time using Unreal 4 for this. Visually, like I don't think people need to freak out. Like oh, it doesn't look like Kingdom Hearts because they're not building on the internal engine that I'm sure people said back when they found out it wasn't going to be. It was going to be on Unreal 4. I just want to see. I want them to get it out of the way and start introducing the new stuff. Like I don't want to see Aladdin. I don't want to see Agrabah. A million footage clips of Agrabah. I don't want to see the Colosseum. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to see Alice in Wonderland. Like they can be in there, but they need to focus on the new stuff as much as they can as it becomes available. And I think the kind of stunk the day that the Twitter account or whatever announced that this was coming because it was like the release day of Star Wars. People
Oh
thought we were getting a Star
yeah.
Wars
Oh my
Mhm.
announcement.
god.
I was like, oh, here we go. Like the good stuff's about to happen. I was
I
like,
saw people saying that and I was like
ah,
Yeah.
because we got
sitting there rolling my eyes like you guys don't even know.
Do you?
real quickly because what we got. We have Big Hero 6 and Tangled are confirmed for it 100%.
Yep.
Like they've already come
Yes.
out said that. It's pretty foregone conclusion that some kind of frozen world is in this game just because of how
I think
it
it's
has
pretty
pretty
obvious.
much has to be in there.
I
There
think it's a
has-
lock.
Yeah, those are three. There has to be a Pixar IP in here in terms of like Toy Story or Cars or Incredible. Like one of those more popular Pixar series has to be in there. Like probably maybe Toy Story since they're making another one, or Cars probably. I think those are
Yeah,
four.
they're making another one of those too.
There has to be at least five. I'm guessing there has to be a minimum of five new areas or worlds. I would I don't think we'll get both. It's a pipe dream to think we'll get both like a Marvel related and Star Wars related. There's
Honestly,
there's a slim chance that maybe one of those, and more likely Star Wars than anything, might get it.
I
But
feel like I really don't want those, and the main reason for that is because they already tried something similar when they had Pirates of the Caribbean and 2, and it just like it felt really out of place, I thought.
maybe it was just the technology back then on PS2, like they couldn't do it as well. But I mean, I guess like when you do like the more realistic live action stuff, I guess, but
Well,
it
yeah, and that's
conflicts
what would
with the
happen with Star Wars and Marvel.
Oh,
So
but no, come on! Like Star Wars has Clone Wars, the visuals. Like they could go with that style and make it
uh,
work in that way. Like it has a cartoony version that exists already, and so does like Marvel stuff. Like yes, it has live action, but that they've already made games and stuff. Like they can make it fit in. Like come on, you know that E3 2016 Kingdom Hearts trailer. It's just gonna start with like some music or whatever. And then you're just gonna hear like the lightsaber sound go off.
Oh
You just see
no.
like it like lights up Sora's face or whatever, and then like you see like Goofy is like C3PO and Donald is R2D2 walk up or whatever, and it's just like let's go. And then like the camera shifts around and it's just like Wolverine on the other side. You see like his
No. No.
what's up? Get wrecked. Or it's like Magneto or something.
This
It's like,
sounds like a
let's do
horrible
this.
fan fiction.
Oh man, the more ridiculous, the better. They got to do this stuff. This is what they need. Kingdom Hearts fan fiction needs to be on the rise
story
again.
is already convoluted enough as it is.
You just gotta roll with it. You gotta get Magneto versus Yoda or Jedi Sora or whatever. Man, can you imagine like Yoda instructing like Sora and crap and the like lightsaber keyblade? Like, oh, the Force, use it, Sora.
Is that what the Mark of Mastery is all about?
It's like dialogue with like Frank Oz. That would be amazing.
No.
Yes. Like, they just get the script that like Harrison Ford. He looks at it, I guess, like tears it up. Like, nope.
Oh man.
Good.
I don't know. Chat seems to be pretty mixed too.
Come on, man. You don't want like Captain America and Sora together. Like Sora's all like, shonen style. Like, yeah, let's do this. Captain America's like, you gotta be a hero, Sora. You gotta stand up for
God.
justice.
Stand up for justice.
My friends are my power. That's the way, Sora. Come on, like, who could Goofy be and who could Donald be? Like Donald could be Harold the Duck. It'd be perfect.
Oh man, I don't even want to picture this now. What did you do to Kingdom Hearts, man? Oh man, I don't think your imagination.
From the beginning.
I think this is what happens when you have to make a video based on Kingdom Hearts and it takes you like hours to make it and you end up going insane because
Nope. Nope. I'm just gonna say this right now. Just because we got a Smash Brothers trailer with Cloud in it, don't be surprised when there's a Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer and freaking like Mario shows up in it, like the launch trailer or some shit. Like this shows Mario like jump out with like Sora, and you're like, oh my god, Nintendo crossover Kingdom Hearts, we're done here. And they got Star Wars and Marvel.
Man, you heard it here
We're
first.
done.
Heard it here first.
Done. Like Mario and Link show up next to Sora, some shit. Like we're going. 10 games selling 10 million copies right there.
So I'm gonna go ahead, and since we just have a little bit of time left, we're gonna talk about our last game, which is Final Fantasy 15, which has been kind of on the down low recently, but it seems like this early this year and this spring is when the game's gonna start kicking its marketing into full gear. We have an active time report, I believe, sometime this month.
yeah,
and we
it's
have
later this month.
later this month.
They haven't set an exact date, but yeah, later this month.
Then we also have what's kind of being built up as a big event in March, where it seems like we're going to learn a lot about the game. And then, later this year, it'll probably release. So we've kind of had a little bit of a reprieve from the marketing. So what do you think Square Enix needs to do in the first part of this year to kind of bring Final Fantasy 15 more into the limelight in a positive way?
Well, I think the biggest thing that they really need to do is they need to show us what the game actually is more so than what it actually isn't. Because last year, I feel like they focused too much on showing stuff that didn't really have very big appeal. They spent a lot of time talking about what the game isn't, and a lot of that messaging became, I guess,
Muddled, yeah.
muddled for sure. And I just feel like they didn't do a very good job last year of showing people what the game actually is, showing them what they should be excited for. There's been, a few vague things here and there, and we've seen a lot of one area which is, the demo area which we had last year. But the biggest thing they need to focus on going forward is not telling us what we're not going to get anymore.
Yeah, I felt that from the messaging quite a bit too. Is like, Versus 13 doesn't exist anymore. It's, why do we have to learn what was in that game or learn what's not in 15? I just want them to show more confidence. I want them to come back and be like, yeah, Final Fantasy 15, we're back and we're gonna blow your hats off, and
Yeah.
then show like a
And-
bunch of really cool stuff. So
and this isn't on them, but I feel like lately some of the fans who keep talking about the game, like they keep talking about it as if Versus is it's still that game, but it's not. It's not Versus anymore. So don't think of it that way. The game hasn't been in development for 10 years. It's not that game anymore.
Mike, it's been quite a while since we've gotten really any huge information about 15, but this year, what do you think Square Enix needs to do to really impress people?
Oh, they need to release the new demo that they've been talking about, whether it's episode whatever they want to call it, not Dusk Sky. They did mention they're releasing a new demo, right? I'm not crazy. I'm just like imagining
Yeah,
that. Then they mentioned they were going to do
there's
a
gonna be
new a new one that's not Dusk Sky. It's something else.
yeah, it's gonna be a free demo that you don't have to pay for.
All right. Well, they need to change that. They need to make it. They need to charge for it, and it needs to also come with. Or no, they need to start pre-orders now for 15 for a version that comes with the Final Fantasy VII HD Part 1 demo.
Oh man, I
I
could
And-
totally see
I
that.
think
And people start talking about 15
well,
again.
I don't think that would go over too well.
No, it wouldn't. No, they need to get that. They need to get that demo out like sooner than later. It needs to. I think it needs to be a drastically different type of demo. I think maybe being more focused, like story, like actually giving us like a better slice of what the final game would be, rather than the episode Dusk Sky kind of just like open world feel, which it got that point across. Like, sure, these zones are going to be big. There's going to be a lot of different things you can go run and do. Like, we get it. Like, that kind of convinced it. And I had problems with it, not related to the open world nature. I guess kind of frame rate, combat issues, HUD issues. They went back, they polished it up, gave us another crack at it. Let's see some of the story stuff. Like, I want to see some of the what that's gonna be like at this point, because that's another it's a huge reason whether I'm gonna be into this game or not. For like, if it's gonna
Yeah, I mean,
sell me on their belief and their dream of what this game ultimately has become.
like not to cut you off or anything, but the story is like the biggest question mark I feel right now because they've changed so much of what it originally was, and some of the stuff that they've told us about doesn't sound too appealing, at least to me anyway. So I'm really worried that it's just going to be really cliche and I won't like it. But hopefully I'm wrong. You know, they can prove me wrong, and I really want that to happen. But right now, I feel like it's like they made it too safe, and it's not the story that I was originally interested in.
Yeah.
Better be able to in the new demo. Better be able to ride that damn chocobo. There better be chocobo riding in it. Just show me that. And I gotta be able to drive the car. But let me drive the car around the city. Let me feel cool. This is for a few seconds. Like, yeah, like I'm in Final Fantasy. I'm driving a car in an open world. What's up, Rockstar GTA? Like Final Fantasy now can do this. Like 15 years later, we're finally cool. Oh look, there's some mobs in the field. Let's run over those guys. That's cool. Like I can finally do this. Oh man, it's a legit strategy. Crashing into them, give them stun and like HP minus like 2,000. Let's get out of the car and fight now. But oh shit, my car is screwed up. Gotta go repair it. Nah.
No, that's
yeah,
cool.
like that's not gonna. You're not gonna be able to crash that car into anything. Let's be
No,
realistic.
I think
It's
you
gonna be
can't
like
even take it off the road. To
it's
be
gonna be like
honest.
select your destination. Do you want to watch like the airship cutscene taking you to another city? Yes or no? Cool. All right. If not, just skip ahead, fast warp to the other city. I think the driving is going to be severely disappointing in that game. Like I think that's why they've kind of kept it away. They're like, yeah, you guys can't drive the car. Sorry, like you can, but you can't do cool shit in it. Just we're gonna keep it over here. Um, I just want to see a different environment. I want to see like a city. I want to see story, and I want to see how they handle that. Um, it might go a little bit in terms of making me feel better about what they're trying to do with the game. And then, as I said, like the game just needs to come out. Like
Mhm.
the demo needs to be like a part of the final game. Like, hey, the game's pretty much done. Here's a part for you to play now to get excited about it. Like, like maybe it's like a part of the beginning to give you like intro to the story, get used to it, so it can't do too much harm if people don't like it or something. Oh, it's just the very beginning. Come on, like, you get past that like an hour and the game gets better. They could lie or some shit. Um, yeah, they just need to have like a final trailer, like a trailer at E3 that has like the release date. Like it's like here's the final trailer. Like story stuff's in here, shots of as many things we were allowed to show you without spoiling it. Release date November something 2016 on a random Tuesday in November, probably right before Thanksgiving. There you go. Pre-order now. Pre-order to get that Final Fantasy VII tech demo.
Oh man, could be. I mean, I think it could be a thing, but who knows? So, it's pretty safe that the back half of 2016 is probably the release area they're targeting. But let's have a little fun and if let's guess a little bit more specifically. I think it's definitely anywhere from September to November. That's my
I agree with
personal
that.
opinion. That's my feeling.
I think they they really want it out sometime in September, but if it slips to maybe October or even November, they'll still be okay.
What do you think? You want to make a bet, Mike?
Mid October to sometime before Christmas. Or sorry, mid November to sometime between Christmas. I think it comes out pretty late. I think they need every bit they can get, but I don't think they can miss 2016.
Definitely.
Yeah,
What you
I
didn't see my
definitely
review
don't
go up?
think they want to miss it in Japan at least. And by announcing a release date in March, that gives them, 6+ months of whatever promotion that they want to do.
Well, it all sounds good. I'm still like super optimistic about Final Fantasy 15. It's kind of been hidden for a little while. We haven't had too much of an update yet, but it looks like January leading into March, that's when things are going to kind of explode a bit, and we'll probably be seeing a lot more of Final Fantasy 15. So, all of the games that we talk about today, we definitely want to touch on a bit more in detail in streams in the future. I know we kind of rapid fired the last half of the show, but we'll definitely talk more about it in the future. So, to kind of close out, I'll go ahead and say my biggest anticipation, my biggest thing I'm looking forward to in 2016 is just the amount of really cool. I mean, even if it's a spin-off, like I'm excited to see more from Square Enix. Whether it's more from Final Fantasy 14 in the whatever develops with the new expansion and the post-release patches. Final Fantasy 15 actually releasing this year. We can actually say that now, hopefully. And then just, like World of Final Fantasy sets and all these games. I'm really looking forward to developments on all of them. So, Mike, what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to from Square in 2016?
If it's gonna happen, I mean, it's either gonna be 15 coming out, or by some chance it's further along than we all thought. Final Fantasy VII HD Part 1. Don't think that's coming out this year. I'm looking forward to playing it at some point. I definitely bet 7 HD is playable at one of these events, like coming up. Definitely E3. And I bet Kingdom Hearts 3 is playable at E3. So I'm looking forward to playing both those and trying them out and finally having this 15 like done. And like here it is. Here's everything. Try it. Like let it see if it's good or not. If it was worth this freaking 11. Who knows how long? 12 year,
10
11
years
year.
or
I don't
something.
know.
Yeah.
10+ year wait. Tech. You can argue the semantics of when this version technically began. Um, And then on the side note, Star Ocean 5, hopefully at some point. And hopefully it comes with alternate costume packs. So freaking checkered half naked wizard lady, I can give her a
Yeah.
different outfit
Yeah.
because that does not look very comfortable or practical. So give them a little bit more fashion savvy outfit. But combat wise, like I'm definitely looking forward to playing that. It's pretty much it from Square Enix, honestly, that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, only other big ones are obviously Persona 5 at some point.
Oh man, the P word.
Yep, let's say it. The Persona 5 at some point.
Yeah.
Let's get it out there.
It's
And
a
the
thing.
and the greatest troll of all, when Nintendo NX comes out this holiday season with Zelda as a launch title.
Oh, I
It's
think
so good.
think we all know that's
So
a high
good.
probability of happening at this point.
The salt that will flow from all the Wii U fanboys when they find out their beloved Zelda isn't coming on in that system that's dead. You want to say dead game 14 Wii U dead game system? Xenoblade didn't save it, folks. It's a good game, but you must be crazy if you thought Xenoblade was gonna save the Wii U. Nope. They got nothing left.
Oh
They're
boy.
not gonna waste
Cloud-
Zelda on
Cloud
Wii
is
U.
in Smash Brothers. That's like the biggest thing since ever.
Game already sold all its copies. It's selling DLC at this point. Like, it'll be cool. I mean, I can't wait for Evo this year. I'm looking forward to Evo this year for like a Bayonetta Cloud finals match. It'll be like the hypest shit on the Twitch stream. We got like anime in here, boys. Let's do this. Like, I can't wait to see the announcers have to say we're at the grand finals of Smash Bros. Like Mago versus Hungry Box, and it's Cloud and frickin' Bayonetta like playing each other. Like, it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be too good. And Ryu's gonna be in there, so maybe maybe a good Street Fighter troll. I don't know. I have high hopes for Evo for Smash Brothers. Like to be hilarious. Oh yeah, Twilight Princess on GameCube. There's gonna be so much salt from that the HD re-release when it doesn't look any different than the original version. It just looks like up-res, and we're gonna be like, I can't wait for the like salt's mostly gonna be coming from me, but that's cool.
Oh, we know. We know.
It'd be too good. But yeah, no, the NX. I cannot wait for that. They see it at E3, maybe sooner. I think we have to see it maybe sooner. I think they have a. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some big spring event cooked up for the official NX unveiling. And I'll give people this. Zelda might come to both Wii U and NX at the same time. There's no way in hell a game is a Wii U exclusive. Nonsense. No, not happening.
Man, you
Nintendo
heard it
will
here.
be back because they'll also be getting Kingdom Hearts 3 and FF7 HD and
I could see that.
all that stuff. And Final Fantasy 14 will be on NX. Remember, it's all gonna happen. Year of Dreams, 2016.
The Year of Dreams Part 2.
Yeah.
Oh man, chat says, does anyone other than Damiani actually care about NX though? Would you like to respond to that, Mike?
What are you guys talking about? NX is gonna be the best system ever. It's gonna be a portable PlayStation 4. It fits. It's gonna be like the size of your iPhone. Take it around, play awesome Nintendo mobile games on it, and then or the regular games, but like you have to use a different interface. But once you get back to your house, just put it into the docking bay, full screen on your HD TV with controllers and everything. No shitty Wii U gamepad with touchscreen crap. It's a nice normal controller. The shit, and then I get to play the games and on my screen, like good games, and then you take them on the go with you too. So you could play, and then it's like the screen becomes the device becomes like a touchscreen. Then, so all the people who love their touchscreen stuff, there you go. It's gonna be perfect. Like it's gonna be like 3DS, Wii U in one with the power of PlayStation 4.
Will it have VR though?
And it'll be cheaper than PS4.
But
My
what?
ass.
Will it have VR though?
What?
Oh,
but
yeah,
what if it sucks?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's kind of hard to outdo the Wii U in terms of suckage. So I think they can only go up from here. I mean,
Let's hope so.
and they don't worry. They got all those exclusives locked up. Can't wait for all those third-party exclusive announcements.
As you try to hold a
GTA.
straight face.
Right.
GTA 6. What else is gonna be on there? Final Fantasy 16 exclusive. Witcher 4. Nope. Nah, I think it's. I am excited at this point because we don't know shit about it. It could suck a lot more once we know more about it. Like this is the good point because there's possibilities are endless until they finally show us something about it. And the rumors about it being a portable and it could be mobile on the go, but also as like a powerful console when you hook it up, sort of thing. Like that seems cool. I don't know if Nintendo can really do that well, so I'm a little worried about it. You know,
Wow.
Guess
honestly,
we'll just have to see whatever they announce.
as long as I get Zelda this year and it looks as good or better than what I've seen, we're cool. We're good. I can play Zelda for like 2 months nonstop. Nothing else matters in life besides Zelda. I hope it comes out the same time as 15, so I can be like, screw you, Final Fantasy 15, not playing you for 2 months.
Oh man, I definitely would have to choose 15 on that though. I'm sorry.
That's cool. I'll play the better game. I will just like to see the
Oh.
social media updates of all the salt about 15. I'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I skipped this game.
What if it... Well, people were making a big stink out of what if it came out on the same day as Persona 5? Which is not going to happen, but...
That was pretty funny. That'd be pretty funny, and it'd be great if Persona 5 out